make sure my phone.
Welcome to Women in Paint. Whether your paint story is dripless or an old school mix of project management, business ownership, or modern estimation, the stories of women in paint are now part of the industry's rising success. We'll educate, encourage, and promote diversity and gender equality by giving you a behind-the-scenes look at our proven skills, business acumen, and driving force that propels anyone to find meaningful opportunities and a career path that challenges lives through paint. Now let's welcome your host, Michael Cheney.
Welcome to the show. I have got my buddy on with me, Lauren Fink. I am rocking her Apex hat. It is one of my favorites. Lauren is joining us from South Central Michigan. She's got an amazing painting company called Apex Painting. Lauren, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Michael. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, listen, you got to set the stage for us. Tell us where you are. I see this beautiful backdrop. I hear birds. Tell us what your environment is like right now.
Okay, so you caught me. This is spring break at the Fink house. We live outside a very small town of Hillsdale, 8,000 people population, on 10 acres. And Andrew and I, we have 5 kids. So it's a very busy house. And we have our dog, Bob, who you'll probably see. I'm hoping he'll come back around. And 20 chickens, 2 cats. We have 4 boys and 1 girl. So having 10 acres is really important for boys especially, but kind of for all of us in many, many ways. So we're going to talk about vision today. And this was so Andrew and I have been married 16 years. This was one of our visions many, many, many years ago. So yeah, that's the setting. The boys are watching a movie. It's early. I just woke up like 40 minutes ago, so you're gonna get a little bit of the eye.
Get a little bit of the raw, real deal. This is what it looks like at Lauren Fink's house right now in spring break. No, that's awesome. It's amazing. And honestly, I just have always appreciated your authenticity. And you're like, hey, here we are. We're out on the front porch. And Bob might swing by and say hi. I love it. Yes. Let's talk about how you got into the painting industry, because I would say I don't meet too many mothers of 5 that just say, okay, I'm going to start a painting business, right? Yeah. And your stories always intrigued me. So share that. How did you land on Apex Painting? Where did that come from?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm a very creative, visionary person who has always dreamed of having, I think small business ownership is a unique dream. I don't think everyone has it. I think some people would say, no, thanks. So if you have this itch for small business ownership, you are already a little unique. And the story is mostly that I am my father's daughter. He's probably the biggest single inspiration in my life, continues to be. He just turned 77, and he did some really cool things in business. He was in the healthcare industry for his career, and I was always intrigued by his visions in business. So he was a visionary in business. He patented some essentially systems when healthcare was making a lot of changes in the 80s and 90s. And he did things very much his own way and had a lot of success thinking about what the market in healthcare needed and how to harness basically his vision was harnessing the power of doctors and getting them out of independent practice so that they could actually practice more efficiently. And so it was very, I say that I get into the details because it was very collaborative and also it was facilitating. So he saw people with a lot of talent who could be set up for more success. And then you have this, I have this. This is like when I see someone that's great at something, I want to fit them in the Tetris of business and make it like blossom. I want to see them break down barriers and have success, and also just infuse them with the energy and the encouragement that they can do what they've always wanted to do. So that's like the background. And as we kind of played out our dream of having a big family, which was always a dream of mine. Andrew's one of 6, so he was on board from the beginning. And I don't know, kids never stopped my creativity. So I was always doing things while I did about babies for about 10 years straight, like every 2 years. So our kids right now are 15, 13, 11, 9, and 7. And I never stopped, like none of that part of my brain stopped working, even when we had all children. And so my first career was like journalism, writing, editing. And I did a lot of things from home when I had babies. I ghost wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal for a client of mine while I had 4 kids at home. So I really did not see, I tried to work around barriers in a creative way when I had small kids, of just things I wanted to be able to do. So we moved back to Hillsdale. That's where we actually met. And it just seemed like this perfect place to have a small business. So I really ended up in painting because it was like it's like a flow chart, Michael. It was like, what kind of business do I love? I come from my family has a lot of artists in it. I love home improvement. I was like, I definitely want to be in home services. And I have 4 boys. So I'm like, where can my kids be? Where's the need? So like kind of just watching my own home services contractors and going like, I can see this being better. I can see someone kind of, again, real parallel to my dad. I can see someone running this who isn't the plumber or isn't the roofer, so that they're better set up for success. So, and then it was just like narrowing it kind of down and realizing that the best painter in town that I know, who I still, talk to all the time, when I called him about an exterior job, he was out like 2 years or a year and a half. Wow. So that just told me the market was in the right place. I started in 2021. We had a big COVID boom of people like sitting around with essentially extra money to spend on their home. Right. Couldn't do anything else. So I'd say it was a pretty great time to start. And that's like kind of how it happened. So I got with a local painter who I really just was going to pick his brain. He was retiring. He's like the painter from around here for like 30 years. Everybody knows him. And I was really just going to get some advice from him. And I sat down to do coffee with him. And he said, Lauren, you have to start this company. I have customers to give you today. Wow. People keep calling me. They don't have anyone to go to. And he was also a mentor of I would call him kind of the best single painter in town, Austin. And he's like, Austin can't take all this work. Like, there's more. So he had me on a job within a few weeks, just teaching me some basics. And then he pointed me to my first employee, which is Heather Ryan. She's been with me, like, we're weeks away from 4 years. Wow. And she was a huge inspiration to me. Hearing her story of wanting to be a fully employed painter and always being kind of the assistant that got dropped every winter. And then she had some injuries working in the factories here. I was like,
you made a home for her. You made a home for her. Let me ask you something, because you touched on something that I want to dig into. I hear women sometimes saying that they feel like they have to put their life on hold because they now have kids, right? Like they have this limited capacity to follow their dreams because they have to commit to raising kids, right? Which is obviously an admirable thing. What do you say about that? Because that wasn't your frame of mind, it sounds like. How would you encourage someone that life doesn't stop to raise a family, to have a family?
I think the first thing I would say is make sure your vision of having a family and pursuing your passions does not need to look like the next person. So I think we unfortunately are just built to see a pattern and then say, okay, that's the pattern. It's a proven pattern. So I know I can do that. And we are, I mean, the truth is, and you, Michael, we could talk about this all day. You're really limited by who's surrounding you. If you're surrounded by people who, become a mom and their world is, and this is not a criticism. Let's just say their world is the country club, yoga pants, getting together with friends, wine, girls' nights, and I'm trying to like fill in the blanks. But if that's the picture, you might go, okay, that's motherhood. That's what I like. And then there's all these achievements and kind of goals in that world. And so if you go into that world, I think you are totally full. I think you get full with all of those things, and you are going to meet the expectations of the people around you. So I think it seems like on a really basic level, it starts with community, which is kind of frustrating because some people can't like just choose their community.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband, we made an intentional decision to move our family. Like, we wanted to raise our kids in Hillsdale. We wanted to be away from the cities for this, and had a vision of living kind of a rural life, which is interesting because neither of us grew up rural.
Interesting, yeah.
Super suburbia. So this was very new for me. And he grew up in downtown Ypsilanti. So it wasn't because we like saw it before. I think we just we saw something we wanted. And so I don't know. It's just like the community here has helped.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. It's like we're definitely not held back by expectations of the people around us or the parents around us.
Right.
And we don't have I don't know. We don't have a lot of social pressure here to like be thinking a certain way, but I don't know, that might not be true because we also like, this is a place where we feel comfortable in the way people, the mindset around us. So, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I think like what you're touching on is the idea that I would say if you aren't careful, you can fall into the expectations of others without recognizing that you have a choice in there, that you actually you do have the opportunity to think differently. You don't just have to do what has been shown to you. If it's actually what we were talking about earlier before we jumped on here, which is the idea of staying curious, right?
yes.
Staying curious, if you grew up in a situation where maybe your mother did drop everything and all focus was the children, and you saw your mother not fulfill her passion and dream, then maybe you are going to be conditioned to do the same without understanding that there could be another path for you that's fulfilling, as well as it is to be fulfilled as being when you're being a mother, right? Something along those lines, maybe.
Yes.
So love it. So you said, okay, it's COVID. I'm going to start this painting business. I want to provide stable work for this young lady who wants it. And then what then? Does it just take off and the rest is just this glorified painting company, or what does it look like? And I'm smiling because I know This stuff is not easy, and we're all trying to figure it out. But what did it look like for you? You've got some customers lined up. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I became suddenly very open to whatever the market sort of allowed. And when I got a lot of calls, and I mean, I bid my first job without knowing the name of my company. So I definitely did not do kind of a like safe, like let me do this and then this and then this.
Yes.
I definitely let the customer tell me how big my company should be in the next few months. And I started the company in early May. So in Michigan, your biggest booming time is, essentially June 1st to October 15th.
Yeah.
So I actually had, I think this is so important to say out loud because you shouldn't do it this way, but I'm definitely a fail fast, fall really hard. It takes me back to high school. I did hurdles before I was ready, and I was in a track meet, and I literally took out like 4 girls on my first meet because I was like, what could happen? I mean, I had 11 employees within 45 days. Wow. So I brought on every young, reliable high schooler and college student that I happen to know. And Heather was doing daycare and herding cats, and I was selling, and I'd work on site when I wasn't out selling. And but it was an incredible summer. Honestly, I look back, I drive by the houses we did that summer, and we started historic restoration within 45 days of my business, which is my greatest passion in this industry. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I think the funny thing about business ownership is that I had learned, especially being a journalist, how to quickly become an expert on something you know nothing about. So I had kind of a probably not healthy level of confidence that I could become an expert much faster than I probably could. But I knew how to research. Right. I also knew how to interview people. So I immediately began messaging people who knew more than I did and asking basic questions. So that really worked for me because I quickly figured out a prep process for historic soffits and fascia. And we were on that job with a boom lift, and the company was 2 months old. And I learned a safety protocol for using lifts. And I bought my first, we call it a catwalk, like a between ladders. Yeah. And I was the first one on it, like about 35 feet in the air. And for me, that is a very happy place, although it's crazy. So if you like crisis control, you like adventure, that was like, oh my gosh, it was like kid in a candy store. And I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. Yeah. So the hardest part though is when you're built like me and you're all in, fall fast, like go. Like I will out stubborn, I will out pace, I will outwork everything around me. I'll make up for what I don't know with just sheer effort and smarts. If I had a customer problem that I didn't understand, I would just figure it out, and then I'd negotiate my way out of into. Yeah. We figured out we couldn't do this. I bid it. I didn't know what it was. She's like, well, you didn't do it. And I just go, okay, let's change the price and let's, it's just like literally just flying by the seat of your pants.
Figuring it out.
The danger in it doesn't happen right away. It happens at your 1-year anniversary. when I just cried and cried and cried because I wanted to be farther than I was.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted. So that's where you can't just keep, you're running a marathon like a sprinter, and you just can't keep it up. So where like, who are you if you're a starter, essentially who are you handing it off to? Like in EOS, it's, who is your like visionary, who is your integrator, how are you, so I felt that immediately. I felt that at 1 year, like,
okay,
who's going to take this over?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It reminds me of a few things, but I want to talk about something tactical because you're able to hire a good amount of people very quickly, and that seems to always be a struggle for people. So if you were going to give someone, say, like 2 tips on hiring, what are they? If someone's like, I can't hire, I always hear people say I can't find good people. How'd you find 11 people in 45 days?
I'm extremely extroverted person who wants to know everybody in my whole community, and I want to know your friends, and I want to know the stranger I ran into when I was in the city. And if I'm in Home Depot, I'm randomly talking to 5 people and I'm getting someone's phone number, and I'm online and I'm, who's that person? And they have a nephew who just moved to town and has experience with carpentry. I mean, it's not a tactic. It's that I'm a people person through. I'm like excited to meet someone I've never met every day of my life. So that's really the secret. And then you can say, like, tactically, maybe it's getting way outside your comfort zone, talking to people. If you're going to rent equipment at a equipment rental place, you're talking to every contractor that walks in the door while you're there. So that's not very comfortable. But I also have a bunch of experience with that because as a journalist at a daily newspaper, I had to talk to people who didn't really want to talk to me, like, over and over again. And for a woman, I had to do that with men in Washington, D.C., in, Ann Arbor, in Tyler, Texas. And I learned how to talk to anybody. So I had a weird background that allows me to probably quickly connect with someone and figure out what they are looking for. And also just, I mean, we kind of talked about like people's expectations or like looking weird. I've had many conversations where it looked like I was the crazy lady kind of like running after you in a parking lot. Like, I don't know. That was probably me, So so you do have to risk that you have some interaction that's super odd. And someone's sort of like, why, like, I think we're done here. And I'm like, one more question.
One more question. So there's a couple things you're saying. One is always be hiring. Like for you, you're talking to people, you're this extrovert, but it's like always be hiring, always want to know who's in the room. And then the other piece is what you're saying is get out of your own way and get over looking stupid. Get over the fear of looking ridiculous, right?
Look insane. Be a person who says things out loud that other people don't do in the same room.
Yeah. Let's talk about what does the business look like today? What is maybe a struggle? And then what is something you think you've really nailed?
So business today is we have kind of settled in on, I would say that like, I'm actually very happy to say I'm settled in wanting to perfect the size of doing about 800 to 900,000 a year. For me, that's 8 painters. I should say 6 to 8. It has, it doesn't always stay right there. And one, I have a project manager, office administrator, basically one overhead position. And then I basically run sales, but she also runs some sales. So like, I'm just kind of like, I do whatever's necessary. But at this point, when I need to leave on vacation, everything's going. I might have set a few things up before I left, but I don't, like today. I mean, Kathy probably expects that I'll stop in the office today, but we didn't even talk about that. Right. So this is I'd say this is about as slim of a version of not being, key man is kind of maybe a term you could say. I'm not key man right now. I'm very important, but I would say Kathy and my 2 senior foremen are probably the people who are running. They, day to day, why is it still going? Those 3 are running it. This is probably as small of a company you can have and randomly not be at work.
Right. So you've got some flexibility that works with your life. You've got some key players on your team that are holding down the fort for you. It sounds like a nice situation. What's one of the pain points that you're feeling at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, the pain points are very much, for me personally, it's that I've never, since day one, I've never quite had as much time as I would like to put into business ownership and business work. And that's my own fault. So like we're talking about, how do you have a family and keep your passions going? So one of the sacrifices I have to make is I don't get to be 100% business owner.
Yeah.
If I do that, I neglect my family. So I'm constantly trying to decide how to use my business, my apex time. And then I'm constantly saying, that's all I have. Yes. So there are places where I know I need to improve. I basically, it's kind of like triage. Like, where's the bleeding bad enough that I need to, maybe it's, I think I've learned, I mean, this is a huge lesson. When you first start out, you can't let anything go. Everything, if something's off, you are like, you couldn't sleep if you didn't go deal with it. And I have learned a couple things that I'd say come with maturity in business ownership. One is saying, yes, that's not perfect and that needs to be addressed, but it's not today. And it's actually probably not even next week. So put it on the list. Second one is not having an answer. This one has been huge for me. I hated it for so long when I was told. My dad, actually, this is like probably one of the one things he has told me the most often for 4 years. You don't have an answer. Lauren, are we gonna get, if our holiday pays on a Monday and we end up taking the Friday off instead, can we get on the Tuesday? I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I'll get back to you. Constantly. It's usually personnel questions. Those are where, your employee's job is to constantly, I mean, this is human nature. They're going to try to get everything they can out of their employment. They are trying to make money and have a good job. So they're going to take everything you've set down and they're going to some of them will pick it apart and say, okay, so that's the OT rule, but if I do this and this and this, what's the rule? Yeah. That's the gas rule, but if I do this and this and this, do I get reimbursed? You're going to buy me this and this and this, but if I need this, are you buying it or me? Am I buying it, right? So those questions, I want in my head when I started, a good leader has the answers. Right. Well, my dad taught me over time, and just I would keep asking him about this. My husband too, really. He's a very good leader, whole different industry. And he was a Marine officer. So like, I love those two perspectives are really great. The answer is, I will get back to you. I appreciate your question. It is important. I am listening. I will get back to you. And then probably the follow-up hard thing to learn is just telling people no. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
Very good.
If you're bummed, like you know, that's a hard thing when your goal was to create like amazing employment. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to say like, yeah, it's a no.
Yeah.
And
So two things that stand out there to me is one, you don't have to know all the answers, right? I think that's a good reminder. That's a good reminder. Sometimes as the owner, you feel like you got to know everything. And then it sounds like you've gotten good over the last couple of years in creating the boundaries between home and work, and you've figured out how to get to a point where both home and work are being taken care of, but it sounds like you also have to just let some things go to make that happen.
You do. Yeah, you do. Unless you're, so I always say, and this is really important to be honest about. One reason I've been able to do things in my company the way I have is that my husband is the main breadwinner of our family's basic needs. Benefit to that, you can take risks in business, or you can step out of things that a primary breadwinner can't.
That's a good point.
I didn't pay myself in December. Primary breadwinner,
right?
Nope, doesn't happen. So that's good to know. And then secondly, the flip side of so it gives you freedom. It gave me freedom to take risks or like manipulate things and not have to have steady income. I mean, if you don't have to pay yourself as steadily, you have a lot of things you can do.
Right.
But the flip side is that I'm the first parent because he's the first breadwinner, or I don't know how to, I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally.
So I have to drop work and be, and I have to make peace with, like, that's a great setup. On a selfish day, you're like,
yeah,
what the hell? Like my kids are having stomach aches again. I got to pick them up from school. I mean, winter can really get you down when you have 5 kids who basically just pass everything around that goes through the entire school. But I have to go, hey, you got a great deal.
Right.
You got a great deal. And you can work from home and you need to be creative. Sometimes I had a kid with a stomach ache at my office on the couch. So sometimes we just, and that's where I think getting out of the framework of like, what is a good childhood? What is a good, am I a stay-at-home mom or am I a working mom? Like what is that?
Right.
Like, first of all, stay-at-home moms do tons of work. Like, I don't know. It's like, those are not, you don't have to create any boxes with I didn't do a lot of like daycare. My youngest, Gustav, he was a big part of my business when I started. Now he's in first grade, but when he was pre-kindergarten, we had some Montessori time, and then he was on the road with me.
He was with you.
I mean, it's like, that's one reason I picked painting is I'm like, I need something where if my 4-year-old is with me, no one's like, oh, he can't be here. Like, I'm not saying it's not always professional to have a child with you. If you have to sit down and have a difficult conversation with a client, like you're okay, but there's a lot you can do. And then I found Kathy, who you also have to be brave and say if you're the mom owner, you have to say, Kathy, today I need to be at this meeting. You need to go pick up my kids. So now because your family needs are your business needs.
That's right.
So you have to have people who understand that if they're kind of your assistant or they're, they wear multiple hats, and part of it is actually, that's not out of the question. That's actually not weird at all. If you think about like CEO women, their kids' care is part of their schedule.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love it. What do you hope? What's the next, hope for Apex or your family? What does that look like?
My goal this year is perfecting what we already have. And it's weird because it's both sides. It's on my business front and it's on my home front too. So we're doing a lot of home improvements that we put off. So it's like, it's not as, I've really shifted. I think maybe I burned out some of my if you think about like a rocket firing, I think I burned out a few of my like adventure creative burners, and now I'm really excited to see what Apex can do, just as it is, just
Yeah.
just in this framework, just with our products and services, and just really hold steady and just prove there's proving yourself as a startup, and there's proving yourself as a stable business, and they look very different. And I know I'm good at the startup, so the challenge for me is, can you hold this steady?
Yeah, I like the way you frame that. People always want to know what's your tech stack. If you want to just quickly thought a few things, what are the things you use for estimating? What are some of those tech programs you're using?
Yeah, ours is basically Drip Jobs, Company Cam, Slack, Google Docs, everything on the Google Drive. Trying to think what else. Those are like our main. Those are the main ones. That's
Okay,
everything.
very good. Last question I have for you. You're running this business, you've got this family, you've got 5 kids, all this land, Bob, chickens, all the things. By the way, I'm so glad that Bob made an appearance on this. But what do you do? How do you take care of Lauren? How do you take care of yourself so that you can keep showing up and taking care of all of the other things you're doing?
Yep. Big one. It's knowing that everyone wants a little more of me than they can get. And like being a little bit at peace with that. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so knowing that some part of that has to go toward you have to, your kids, your husband, maybe your business, maybe all of them all have to be like a little bit like, we miss you a little bit, we need a little more, we could use a little more attention. Finding like a peace in that, and knowing that you might need, for me it's like, honestly, it's like going to bed at 7 or 8 p.m. one night, which is sad for anyone in the house who wanted to do something that evening. And then having, I think, travel with like a friend, like a girlfriend, or with just my husband, and then having alone time in that travel for me is really therapeutic. And giving time for processing what, if I don't process what's been happening over the last 6 months, I feel lost. So I'm a processor, got to do it. It's either verbal or like written for me. So if I sit down and write, but a lot of that's with close friends and confidants. And then biggest lesson probably in the last 4 years, because we've taken a lot more risks than we did the years before, is like, just because my husband and I are both very confident and independent, we have to have time together, even if it's 20 minutes, where we connect and we talk and we have like, we're on the same page. And we can't just do the business of running a family, because that just becomes like a business partnership. We have to be best friends. And so we always say to each other, you're my, let's do best friend things together. So that's been, what do best friends do? If you lose that, you are really just like parents, and like logistics officers. So we do best friends things, and we do best friends vacations, and we go to concerts, and friendship is important.
Yeah, I love it. Listen, thank you for joining me. You're a total rock star. I know you don't know this, but you are an inspiration to myself and
I
others
hope
in
it's
the
helpful to
industry.
someone, but thanks for letting me talk your ear off, Michael.
I loved it. No, I hope to do it again soon. And for those that have joined us, thanks for joining. Catch us next time right here on the Women in Paint podcast.
Thank you for joining us on Women in Paint. We hope you feel compelled to follow your own path and use your compassion, strength, and skills to build a career in the paint industry. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give it a simple click to subscribe so we can invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share it on all your socials. Remember, Women in Paint, stir up more than just a can of eggshell.